guess in a lot of ways this does remind me of the recent news about the secret Chinese police stations the CCP set up all over the world, including in New York City. And just how the Chinese Communist Party is actively trying to silence criticism of the Communist Party, even in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the CCP even surprises us at this point. The audacity to try and open up police stations and kind of sell it to the world like they're just sort of this service center for the Chinese diaspora, which sounds like what they were trying to do. But even if you look at those two arrests, so that was 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. If you look inside the indictment, one of those individuals, some of the stuff that was listed in the indictment was anti-Falun Gong activity here in the United States. So, for example, one of the guys was paying and busing in Chinese people, we think probably students, over to D.C. to launch a counter-protest against Falun Gong, to drown out Falun Gong when they were there for a peaceful demonstration. The indictment also talked about the guy being asked to create and get published negative news about Falun Gong right here in America. So there are elements of that indictment that were similar to the one that just happened involving the IRS.
I mean, is it illegal to bus people to be in a protest?
I don't necessarily know if it's illegal to bus them, or maybe not even illegal to pay them. Perhaps there's a FARA issue here. Clearly, they're acting as an agent of a foreign government, and so did they register that activity? Did the people that were bussed in and were paid by CCP proxies to sort of counter a peaceful protest here in America? Would they have to register? I mean, I think these are sort of the questions the State Department and others should start be looking at. Is clearly our civil society and our laws were not created so that a hostile foreign regime can silence American voices. So where and if they crossed legal lines, it's a little hard to tell, but clearly there was something wrong with that behavior because they did put it in the indictment. So maybe it's more of a foreign agent declaration issue.
Now, you mentioned they were busing probably Chinese students. I know the Falun Dafa Information Center recently released a report on how the CCP is extending its reach into American universities. Can you tell us about that report? Yeah,
it was interesting. That started, we got a phone call from one of our friends' daughter who's at Amherst College. And, she was taking a Chinese language or culture class, and she was looking through one of the textbooks there. And like textbooks inside China, it had sort of examples, language examples, I guess, that were denigrating or vilifying Falun Gong, which is really bizarre. It's the kind of thing you see in China. Certainly you don't see that outside of China, but there it was in a textbook in a very prominent college. And we had a discussion with her, and she actually had a very productive discussion with her professor and sort of, why that wasn't, why that was wrong. But it spurred a larger conversation among people who practice Falun Gong in universities across the country. And for this report that you're talking about, Chris, what we eventually did is we did a survey across all these universities to see, okay, do people feel safe? Or do people feel the concrete examples or manifestations of the CCP propaganda or the bullying or the surveillance on campus? And if so, what is that? How does that manifest? What does that look like? And the answers were, unfortunately, there's a lot of it. There's a lot of people who've tried to set up Falun Gong clubs at their universities, then found resistance. There's a lot of people who get surveilled by Chinese students, who get bullied by Chinese students. And so we felt that was important. That was an important aspect of this larger umbrella of transnational repression. And so we put together a report that kind of documents this and shows the different ways it manifests and gives some recommendations about what the schools could do to rein this in.
I think one other interesting side of that is the Chinese students who've come to study in the United States. Like, most of them are probably not particularly interested in politics and don't care about Falun Gong one way or the other. But there may be a lot of pressure on them by CCP entities to get on a bus and join some kind of counter-protest. And that is a bit of speculation, but it reminds me of how in Canada, the CCP was pressuring overseas Chinese students to vote in the Liberal Party primaries for the CCP candidates that they wanted, because the party elections in Canada are anyone can vote. You don't have to be a citizen. So imagine you're coming to like a university in another country, and then someone from your own government basically comes and tells you like, you have to vote for this person, or you have to get on a bus and be involved in this protest about this issue that you don't care about or maybe even feel strongly about on the opposite side. And yet if you don't go, it's going to reflect badly on you.
Not just that, they I think in the Canada case, they were specifically threatening to withdraw the student visas.
Yeah. So you can just imagine the pressure on these, like mostly innocent, like sure, there are some that are probably involved in, a little bit of spying or reporting, but like for the most part, these are just like innocent kids who've come to, study in the United States. Mm-hmm. And now they're like, wait, what? I have to go to this protest? That's not what I'm here for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think we were meeting with a few folks down in DC about 4 months ago related to the State Department, and one of the things that one of the folks told us there, and I think it was sort of a nice, honest admission, is that we, not just the State Department, but everybody, all of Western governments, are about 10 to 15 years behind on understanding the extent to which the CCP could at any moment leverage pressure on an individual, whether it's a student or someone working in a company here, or an entire corporation, or the so-called NGO. The idea that a nation has, or government, in the case of the Chinese government, of the CCP, has the ability to weaponize any individual or organization based in their country, whether it's a company, NGO, what have you. And what does that mean? It means that they could essentially turn any of these folks to be agents to do what they're bidding. And I think what you guys are talking about is just one sliver of this, and that is the students. And I think, Matt, you're very right on that. Is that's my sense. A lot of these students, they're just students. They want to get here. They want to get a good education, maybe go back to China, get a job, maybe stay here, what have you. But they all have friends and family back in China. They have other interests back in China. They have their visas that they need the local consulate or embassy to support. And if they do anything that crosses the CCP, they could lose that, or their family could be in jeopardy. And we see many individual cases of that actually happening. And so, yeah, it's a staggering problem in its complexity and sort of the different layers, where we have, a relatively open society, a civil society, and yet anything that the CCP that can control, and they control a great deal, could be turned against us. And these poor kids are often caught in the crossfire.
I mean, I really feel for them, because I personally can't stand being told what to do by somebody else, whether it's like a professor or a university dean or something, and like let alone by like your government that you're not even in that country.
You would not have made it in a communist country, Matt.
Oh no, I would definitely have been killed a long time ago.
Yeah, and I think also, and you see this a lot across the board, it's gone underground to a certain extent. I mean, I remember 20 years ago, we had an incident in a university in New York, and that the persecution had just started. And you go to the website of the university, and it's very clear. They list officials with the local Chinese consulate as the board members of the student association at the university. It's very explicit. It's very clear. The consulate is running the student organization. And so
the Chinese Students and Scholar Associations.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is the Columbia University, as I recall. That's what you're referring to, right?
It was. And so it was very explicit, and it was very, everybody understood that was going on. You don't see that anymore. That's kind of gone underground, but the behaviors are there. The patterns are there. If you talk to the individuals who, and they will speak freely, all those pressures are still in place. It's just they've learned to not put that, blazonly on a website, and it's still very much going on.